Nemo Radio is on the air.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
All right, welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. We've got some Nemo video if you're watching on the YouTube channel. So excited to be joined by Wes Barefoot. Now, you may remember him. He's pretty famous for being the social media intern in 2009 for the Hilton Garden Inn. Welcome to the show, Wes.
I barely remember that, John. I barely remember that. That was like, oh man, that's, I don't, not much to talk about there. It was short-lived, and I think most of it was like trying to figure out how to set up a Facebook page, and it was the early stages of social media being used for businesses, and I had zero experience, zero credibility. I don't know how I talked my way into that internship, but that's funny.
You've come a long way, baby. And of course, I had to look at your LinkedIn profile because obviously Wes and I know each other. We help Wes with generating leads on LinkedIn. He is the owner of Path to Freedom. He's a franchise consultant. He owns multiple franchises. He's an incredible entrepreneur, a dad. He's just got so much insight and wisdom. And I knew that's why I wanted to get you on the show, not just to talk about franchising and business ownership and entrepreneurship, but even just the different journey you've been on, because with our audience, there's so much of that. We've got a lot of people that want to make that leap, or they are trying to make it happen, but it's not working. And so where I'd love to start with you, Wes, is honestly going back to the beginning and just kind of coming out of college, in North Carolina in the, late 2000s, basically kind of take me through the career journey, because I'm sure you didn't graduate college going, I want to own franchises and be a franchise consultant. Maybe you did, but I'd love to hear kind of your story and your background, your journey.
Yeah, no, franchising was, first of all, thanks for having me, John. Always enjoy chatting with you. But franchising was not on my radar coming out of college. I mean, I did go to business school, but I don't think the word franchise was ever mentioned in business school. And so like a lot of people, in my mind, franchising was fast food and sub shops pretty much. I just never really put a whole lot of thought into it. I would say really even coming out of college, I wasn't thinking all that entrepreneurially. I wasn't thinking about business ownership. My dad worked in the pharmaceutical sales industry for all of his career and, did pretty well. And so anyways, I was just focused on going more of that kind of corporate track. It was 2009 when I got out of college, so it wasn't the best time to be on the job hunt.
Just global recession. What's the big deal? Come on.
Strange enough, there weren't very many companies looking to hire a kid right out of school with not a whole lot of experience. I don't even think I could have gone back to the Hilton Garden Inn and gotten that social media internship. But so I won't go into too many details because it's a long story, but graduated college in North Carolina. Had met a girl that's now my wife, and she was going from North Carolina to Louisiana for college. So I chased her down there, and I ended up getting a job with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which they've got a management trainee program that's pretty well known, I suppose, and highly thought of. And their only requirement for hiring someone is that you have a 4-year degree, and I had that. I didn't have any real experience. They were one of the few companies hiring, and it was great. I did it for about 3.5 years, worked my way up to a branch manager type of role. And, what I really got to learn through that experience was a couple of things. One, I got to learn essentially how to run a business. As you get into a management level, you're involved in hiring, you're involved in firing, you're involved in operations, and obviously there's a sales component to it. But I got to learn how a profit and loss statement works, and they weren't paying you very much at all when you started, but your base salary actually went backwards when you got to a management level, because you then had the opportunity to share in the profits of your branch. And so, that was a really good learning experience, because, I knew that my income wasn't guaranteed every month, or at least wasn't guaranteed to be the same, but the better my branch did, the more profitably we ran it, the more income opportunity there was for me. And so I just kind of got to learn a little bit of how a business should run. What are the levers that, as an owner or a manager, you have to pull on to improve the profitability of your business. But the other thing I learned was that I didn't want to do that corporate grind forever, and it took me probably the better part of 3 years working there to realize that. I mean, I can remember really looking up to managers that I had, and area managers and regional managers, and, still look up to those people in terms of, what I learned from them. But at some point it dawned on me, where some of these guys had been in, the same role for 10, 15 years, and there was really no prospect of upward mobility for them, because like with so many big companies, it starts to bottleneck as you get closer to the top. And, I still have a really good friend that I met working at Enterprise. He still works there today. He's at a position with the company. He's kind of handcuffed. And so for him to go do something else, he's going to take a big step back in pay in all likelihood. And for him to move up in the company, he's literally got to be willing to move just about anywhere in the country that they have a position open up. And then it's him and, everyone else in the company that's at his same level throwing for that same position. So I think all of that was good lessons for me. I still wasn't thinking, I don't think that hard about business ownership, and franchising still wasn't on my radar. But, my wife got done with school at LSU, and we decided to move back to North Carolina. And shortly after getting back, I met some guys that had started a company here in Wilmington where we live, and they had just started that franchise or started franchising that company about a year before I met them. And, hit it off with the founders, still didn't know a lick about franchising. And this wasn't a food business. So that was kind of eye-opening in itself. It's called 101 Mobility, and it's still around. It's a, big brand across North America now. But wheelchair ramps, stair lifts, platform lifts, all about accessibility and mobility for people with physical needs for that type of equipment. And so anyways, they were in growth mode. They were looking to hire a young, stubborn, hungry guy. And it just felt exciting. It had more of this startup feel. And so I went for it. And 6 months or so into that, they're like, hey, you don't do a whole lot well, but you seem to talk to people pretty good. So do you want to try selling the franchises for us? And I was like, sure. So got to learn kind of how that process works. And I think the biggest thing I learned there was that, the good franchise companies out there, they don't look at themselves as having to sell their franchises. They look at it as though they are awarding franchises to people that they feel are going to be a great business partner for them. So it's kind of a mutual evaluation. Obviously, if anyone's considering buying into a franchise, they've got to feel good about it too. And there's a lot of information they need to gather and a lot of questions that they need to get answered, but the franchisor needs to feel that way too. So anyways, learn that process, help them kind of grow that into a national brand, which opened the doors to go, work for another franchise company, kind of doing the same thing, franchise sales and development. And along the way, we had our first kid. My wife had gotten into pharmaceutical sales, and she got laid off on maternity leave. Her company did a big restructuring, and something like 50 or 60% of the sales force got cut loose. And looking back on it, it was a blessing in disguise. It was scary at the time, but she was really anxious about going back to work full time with a 3 or 4 month old baby, and I was traveling a lot, so we would have basically put our daughter in daycare full time. And, you know, my wife just wasn't comfortable with that idea. So, you know, that gave us a little breathing room. She got a little bit of a severance package. And, you know, throughout the last several years, I'd been kind of immersed in this world of franchising, and I'm selling franchises, helping other people get into business for themselves. So I'm talking regularly to very entrepreneurial minded people. I'm working closely with the founders of these brands. And so it had definitely gotten our wheels turning at that point that, hey, maybe this is something we should really be thinking about, and franchising could be a great way for us to do it. So lo and behold, the second franchise company I went to work for is a brand called Shelf Genie. Do custom pull-out shelving and custom closets. It's all about making things easier to get to, right? And start selling the franchises for them. And about a year into it is kind of when the layoff and everything happens with my wife, and the Wilmington and Myrtle Beach territories were still available. So we didn't have a whole lot of money saved up at the time. Went to a mentor of mine, one of the founders of the first franchise that I worked for, said, hey, we're looking at getting into this franchise. I know you like to invest in, you know, businesses as a minority shareholder, and kind of put up some of the capital. Would you be interested? So, you know, we kind of did a deep dive, and that was 5.5 years ago, and we own that franchise today, and it's done really well for us, really well for him as an investor and a partner. And we've gone on to get into a second brand as well as franchisees. But it was really all that experience that got me to the point of, you know, having a consulting firm where now I also help others understand franchise ownership and, you know, whether it could be a good fit for them or not. It's not going to be a good fit for everyone. But if it's something they want to learn more about, then we take a very methodical approach to identifying, you know, different franchises that kind of meet the criteria that they're looking for. And, you know, I give them advice and coaching as they go through the due diligence that's necessary. So probably just gave you a lot more than you bargained for there, but I'll shut up for a second and
no, it's
see if you want me to expand on any of that.
It's great to hear the journey, you know, and obviously I know it from working with you, but it's so interesting that you had the corporate journey, but then I love that you worked inside a franchisor, and then you sold franchises, and then you bought, I know you have at least 2 of your own franchises, because the other one is like an insulation company, right?
Yeah. Pretty sexy, right?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I was just talking to Wes before we hit record, and he was interviewing a former Major League Baseball player. And Wes has got a phenomenal podcast called Path to Freedom that you need to listen to. And this MLB pitcher bought the same franchise, and that's how him and Wes got connected. And it's funny because, it's not the sexiest business in the world, but it's profitable and scalable, and it doesn't have a lot of, you know, there's all these nuances that go into it. And I guess that's where I wanted to kind of pivot next is, to your point, you said early on, you know, people, myself included, you know, when you think of franchising, you think McDonald's, right? Or fast food or Subway. There's like 4,000 or 5,000 different concepts. So explain to me how there are so many and why. I mean, how is this possible? And what are some of the most unusual ones people would never guess are franchise type models?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And I think there's, you know, usually I hear 3,500 to 4,000 you know, different franchise opportunities. And, you know, so probably about half of those are food, right? So obviously food is very prevalent within franchising, and, you know, it's got its place, but there's also a lot of challenges that come with most food businesses, and they tend to be very capital intensive, you know, to work with. So most of my focus in franchising is what I would call non-food franchise businesses. And it's almost anything you can think of, right? I mean, everything from like the types of businesses we own, home service, home improvement type businesses, to, you know, health, wellness, fitness, senior care, childhood enrichment, automotive, B2B services. I mean, the list goes on and on. And, you know, so why do we see so many franchises? I think there's I was actually just listening to a video from Alex Hormozy the other day, and my video guys had me doing one of these little responder type videos to one of his clips. And, he was talking about franchising, and he made the point that, there's usually one of two reasons that a company franchises. One is the business doesn't work, or number two, it's the entrepreneur, the founder is very impatient, and that can be a quicker way to grow and scale the business. I agree with point number two. I don't agree with point number one. I mean, all you have to do is look around and see how many successful franchise brands there are that have been around for so long, and how many franchisees they have that are successful and running profitable businesses. But yeah, I think, that second point's valid, that that's just a quicker way to grow and scale a business, because as a franchisor, you're growing the brand and doing it with someone else's capital. So you're mitigating some of the risk. And you can just move quicker that way. But it's also just a different business model from a revenue standpoint. I mean, you mentioned McDonald's earlier. I mean, McDonald's has like 4 or 5 revenue streams, and one of the biggest ones that they have is owning the vast majority of the real estate that their franchisees then lease from them. So you don't have that if McDonald's owns all of the McDonald's, right? You may still own the real estate, but that's not income for you, right? So a lot of times franchises kind of evolve out of a need for the original company to have a distribution outlet, right? Like, very first franchise brand I went to work for, 101 Mobility, the reason they started franchising, these guys weren't sitting around thinking like, hey, one day let's sell wheelchair ramps and franchise it. But they were all in the mortgage industry, right? And then 2008 happened and their company went under. So they had to put their heads together and figure out what they wanted to do next. And they somehow or another had a contact in the VA hospital in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and they needed wheelchair ramps. So they went and figured out how to source these, aluminum modular wheelchair ramps. And then it went into like auto lifts for transporting scooters. And so anyways, then they get this national contract with the VA, and they're like, well, how are we going to service this? So they start trying to open up these satellite offices near different VA hospitals, and they quickly realize that, they don't have enough control doing it that way, right? But if they franchise the business and had local ownership, people that have real skin in the game and real incentive through profits of their own business within the guardrails of a franchise where there's a legal agreement in place, that gave them the control that they needed to really scale. And so that's a good example of why you see a lot of franchises out there. And, people will sometimes be like, well, take a painting franchise, for example. There's, just off the top of my head, 10 national painting franchises that I can think of, and they all do pretty freaking good, in terms of the financial opportunity for the franchisees. There's nothing unique about painting, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people would sit there and be like, well, damn, Wes, if I want to get into the painting business, why don't I just go start it myself? Why do I need to pay money up front to become a franchisee and give them a percentage of my revenue and all of that? And you need to look at that, because not all franchises are created equally. And there are franchises out there where you're probably wasting money in the fees that you're paying. But when it's done right, as a franchisee, you should be getting more value because you're a franchisee than what it costs you to be a franchisee. And so buying power is one of the most common ways in which franchisors can add value to franchisees, because they're able to leverage, their whole network of franchise owners to reduce the cost of commonly bought materials, products, supplies, marketing, advertising, whatever it is. There's buying power that they can leverage. So it's really this kind of, when it's done right, it's really this kind of win-win scenario. And it's really a partnership at the end of the day. But yeah, it's fascinating how many different types of franchises are out there, and some of the differences or nuances between one type of franchise business model compared to the next. And these are all things that I look at with people and that we talk through, as they're understanding the landscape of franchising, and then, working on narrowing down, what could be the right types of franchise businesses for them. But Craziest one I've really seen, I think you'll get a kick out of this, is there's a franchise out there that cleans up after crime scenes. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, no joke.
That's,
So
wow.
Like Dexter, you see that show?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll come in and clean up after
yeah, that's not one I want a job shadow on. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's pretty wild, but hey, there's a need,
I thought you were going to say clean up after dogs. There probably is a franchise for that.
There's a few of those, and they do pretty well.
I bet no one wants to pick up after the dog. Man, yeah. Okay. So walk me through what goes into this in your role as a franchise consultant, because obviously you deal with people from all walks of life. You deal with the person kind of trapped in corporate and looking for a pivot and a new act. You deal with people that view this as an investment vehicle. They're investors. They want to buy 10 units. You deal with people, former pro athletes. You deal with just entrepreneurial minded. I want to do my own thing, but I don't know where to start. You deal with kind of every situation. So what are the biggest questions people have when they come to you as a franchise consultant? Kind of walk me through your process. If I came to you and said, Wes, I'm interested in franchising, where do we start? What does that look like? Kind of walk us through the kind of methods that you're going to take someone through.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's very true that, everyone's unique and, so whether business ownership or franchise ownership is going to make sense for them, the answer is different for everyone, or it's not going to be the same for everyone, I should say. And so there's not a one size fits all approach to this. Like, I get on calls sometimes and people are like, so what's the hot franchise out there today? And it's an impossible question to answer. And if I tried to answer it, I'd be, BSing you anyways, because, what's a great franchise for John, very likely may not be the right type of franchise business for me, because I think you used this word earlier. You said vehicle, right? And I think that's really the way to look at this is, a business is nothing more than a vehicle. And so, it all depends on where you are today, where you're looking to go, and then what's going to be the right type of vehicle to help you get there. Right. So that's where we start, right? When I'm working with an individual, we start with, really some vision board type stuff. Let's talk about your goals. What are some of your long-term goals? What are some of the short-term goals? What's needed to get there? One of the biggest differences from one type of franchise to the next can be, what the role of the owner really needs to be in order for them to be successful. And so, we all know we have different strengths and skill sets and interests. And, so I think that's a step that a lot of people jump over, if they're trying to go about this themselves, looking at different franchise opportunities, because it's common and, it makes sense if you haven't really put a lot of thought into it. But, you would think, hey, if I'm going to get into a franchise, why not get into something where, I would be a passionate customer myself? Or, I hear this a lot where someone's been traveling and they eat at a restaurant and they come home and they're like, man, we don't have anything like this in our area. I think it would do so well here. Therefore, I think I should open this restaurant in this area. And that's not always going to align or be the right type of vehicle, for you to get where you're trying to go. And so we get to all of that, but it's not our starting point. We start by, as best as we can, kind of defining not only what your goals are, short-term and long-term, but also, what would your ideal life as a business owner look like? In other words, how much time are you putting into the business, right? Are you working a corporate job that you would like to keep while you're getting the franchise business up and running? Or are you in a transition period where, you can dive in full time to a business? Do you own other businesses where you've got time to put into it, but you're still going to have other responsibilities? All of these different scenarios. So how much time do you want to, and are you able to put into the business? And then what are the primary activities that you as the business owner would like to be spending your time on, right? If you love to go out and network and, meet with people and set up strategic partnerships, well, that's great. But if you're introverted, then that there's going to be a lot of franchises that are probably not the right fit for you, right? If you love to build teams, great. But if you don't like to do that, like, we need to know that too. So we talk through all of that. And what that does then for me is it gives me some really good direction in terms of knowing what types of franchises can make sense. And so, as a consultant, there's really two sides to my business. There's helping the individuals that I work with. And as I've just described, that's a pretty, consultative, one-on-one, personalized, process that we work through together. And then on the other hand, it's, cultivating these relationships with high quality franchise brands. So I work with about 300, and I think we said earlier, there's close to 4,000. So I don't work with every franchise out there, nor do I want to. But I work with a good group of brands and, it's a good variety, right? Not a lot of them are in food, but outside of that, there's a really good variety in terms of just different types of franchises, a lot of different industries. The investment ranges are pretty varied. So that gives me a lot of good options as I'm working with someone, to really understand what's going to be the right type of business for them, bring them back some recommendations, and just give them a much more methodical approach versus, doom scrolling online, looking at countless internet listings, most of which have been paid for, by the franchise company. So anyways, that's kind of how we do it. And, for most people, it's exploratory when we start. Very rarely do I have someone that comes to me and is like, Wes, I know I want to buy a franchise. I just need to find the right one. So in most cases, it's something that the person's interested in learning more about. They've far from made up their mind that is for sure the direction they're going to go in. And that's perfectly fine. And I look at it in my business as just as big of a win if I help someone learn enough to say, you know what, I don't think this is for me, or I don't think the timing's right, as I do, when I'm able to help someone get into a franchise business that's a good fit for them.
Yeah, I like that about you. I mean, you're very upfront, even when we have worked with you on your LinkedIn stuff and your messaging, and you're very clear about, like, I'm here to share information, not sell, right? And I think you really, that's legitimately your thing. And I know one of the big misconceptions people have about franchise consultants, which I didn't understand either when I first started, was you actually, to use your services, it doesn't cost anything because you get paid. Explain that model. So you get paid by the franchise company. Is that right? Mm-hmm. If someone moves forward, take us through that whole thing. So people are like, well, wait a minute, why would Wes work for free?
Yeah. I mean, how does that work? I think I'm a pretty nice guy.
Yeah, you're nice, but you got kids to feed. Come on.
I'm not to the point where I can be a philanthropist just yet. Got a ways to go before we get there. So I mean, look, it's a business for me. I make money, there's good income potential in it. It's very similar to an executive recruiter, right? Okay. So the individuals that I work with, no charge to them. There's no obligation. Like I said, for most people, it's exploratory when we start the process. And then, these brands that I have relationships with, I have a contract in place with them that stipulates if I introduce someone to them and they mutually agree it's a good fit and that person goes on to become a franchisee, they pay me a referral fee, essentially. And the fee is just a percentage of the initial franchise fees. And another question that comes up is, are those fees the same whether I introduce someone to the brand or whether they, maybe found that brand on their own? And the answer is yes, the fees are the same. So in other words, the franchise brands don't mark up the franchise fee to cover the commission. So that's where I go back to, it's just like an executive recruiter. A lot of franchise brands like to work with consultants like myself to bring them qualified, interested candidates that line up with what they know they're looking for in their franchise candidates, just like a lot of companies would rather hire a headhunter to go find the right person to fill a role within their organization compared to spending who knows how much money sifting through who knows how many applications or, leads to find something that's a good fit. So that's how it works. And it puts me in a great position because, as you mentioned, I don't have anything to sell to anyone. And that's my favorite thing about what I'm doing. I've sold in the past, never really liked being called a salesperson. I don't think I ever really had that, mentality to be like the top performing salesperson that was always crushing quotas and all of that. And, now I get to do what I enjoy doing, which is, learning about these franchise businesses, helping other people understand it. I'm always learning myself. By no means do I have it all figured out or have all of the answers. I'm getting ready to release a podcast next week that, goes on for 30 minutes of me talking about all the mistakes that we made in this most recent franchise company that we got into, over the last 3 years. So it's, a little humbling. I'm sure when I go back and listen to that, but, so I'm learning as I go as well, but I really like to, be in some sort of a position where I can share what I've learned, what I'm learning with other people. Cause I can tell you that, for me and for my family, owning franchises, or just business ownership in general changed our life in so many positive ways. Right. And, so I like having the opportunity to help other people, peek behind the curtain and see if maybe, it's a direction that would be positive for their life too.
Well, I mean, your company's called Path to Freedom. So there's obviously some benefit to franchise ownership.
There can be.
Yeah.
There can be.
And I mean, we know the benefits, and I'm going to go a different direction here, but obviously the benefits, you can create generational wealth. You can have an impact on your community. You can be your own boss. You can work from wherever. You're an entrepreneur. When you buy into a franchise, you get this kind of ready-made, plug and play kind of process. All the kinks in theory have been ironed out. You have step-by-step instructions. So there's all the appeals of why it's a great thing. Now I want to flip it on its head and go, why is it horrible? What are the nightmares about franchising that nobody talks about? And the reason I'm asking is I want to figure out who this isn't a good fit for.
Yeah, no, it's such a good question. And it's something that I don't think gets talked about enough from, people that do what I do and even the franchise brands that are out there. I mentioned earlier that, the smart franchises realize that, they don't need, they shouldn't be selling, they should be awarding, and they should be as candid as they can with someone that's researching their franchise opportunity. Say, look, here's how it's great, but here's what's necessary for it to be great for you. Because while, yes, everything you said is accurate in terms of, you've got a proven business model, you've got a playbook, you've got systems, processes, and supports and different types of support in almost every aspect of the business, the work still has to be done, right, by the franchisee. So I think that's the first thing in terms of who it's not for, is someone that's looking for an easy button where, they write a check, sign an agreement, and a profitable business is going to materialize in front of them. I wish that'd be cool. I'd have a lot more than 2 of them right now if that's how it worked, John. And I probably would be closer to becoming a philanthropist. But there's a lot of hard work that has to go into it. And it's the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so, look, every franchise I've been involved in, whether as an employee or owning it or helping to place other people in it, they all have top performers, underperformers, and everything in between. All right. And that almost always comes down to franchisee performance, franchisee execution. Now, some of the other...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to park there for a second before we get to all the other nightmare doomsday scenarios. Hard work. How important then is it to pick a franchise that aligns with what you love and are passionate about? So let's say I love stretching and I'm a fitness fanatic and I love stretching. I've heard you say, and even other people say, well, I didn't necessarily pick a franchise that's my personal passion. I picked one that's scalable. And so how do you navigate that? Because hard work is going to be necessary. But what if you're not passionate about insulation, Wes? What if you're not I wake up thinking, whose attic is going to get lined this morning? You obviously bought it for a reason.
Can't wait to climb into a hot attic today. It's going to be a good day. Yeah. No, so it's...
Yeah. So how do you challenge that? How do you navigate that with a prospect?
So you got to distinguish between hard work and what the business does, because it's not always the same thing in terms of, your hard work as a business owner does not necessarily mean that you're working hard providing whatever the service is directly to the customer. So in the case of a stretching business, right, I work with a great concept called Stretch Lab, and that's what they do. Chances are, as the owner, you're not hanging out in the studio stretching people out. And if you are, you probably aren't really doing what you should be doing as an owner, right? Because it's your role as the business owner to manage more of the big picture, especially in a business model that's set up the way Stretch Lab is set up. So yeah, if you own it, probably going to be easier for you to get in and get your weekly stretch and, at a time that works well for you and not have to, worry about the schedule not working with yours. And that's all good, but you need to distinguish between what's the work that you as an owner would be doing and would need to do to be successful, and does that really line up with your strengths and your interests? So like in our insulation business, fortunately, I don't go in attics. I don't ever really touch insulation, right? I've got guys on my team that are far better and more knowledgeable about insulation than I am. But, it's my role and my wife's role in that business to, one, build a team, which we enjoy doing, and to incentivize that team. And then it's, a lot of what I do in that business is the strategic partnerships with customers and referral sources. Something else I also really enjoy doing, right? I go out and I meet with builders or, take a builder to lunch because they're great clients for us. They can give us repeat business. Every house that they build needs insulation. So that's how I encourage people to think about it. And I'm certainly not saying that you can't get into a business that you're also passionate about. I mean, look, I think most people out there are going to say that if they're going to own a business, they want it to be a business that they believe in the product or service that they're selling, and they can see how they're adding value to their customers. I think some people care less about, the status of the business or whether the end product is something they're really passionate about. Like for us, custom shelving, insulation, like we just kind of learn, like what we get excited about is building a good team and delivering a superior experience to our clients. And so like we looked at the insulation industry, and I mean, if you're average, you're terrible, right? In terms of the customer experience. So like that's something we've really had a lot of fun doing is exceeding all expectations in terms of the experience that our customers are getting. I'm probably less passionate about insulation today than I was before we got into the business, because I talk about it so freaking much. I never in my life thought I would talk about insulation. I know more about it than I ever thought I would. So I'm not passionate about insulation. So some people are going to be more motivated by that passion piece in terms of the widget, and that there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to go find the business that you're really passionate about, great. Just don't skip over the other parts in terms of really thinking through and understanding, if I own this business, what does my day-to-day need to look like? And will I enjoy that? Will I be good at it? And will it mesh with what I'm really working to make my lifestyle look like? Because it doesn't always line up that way.
Yeah, it comes back to what you said. It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle to get these end results and end goals. And if your passion is, you did it really well, like building a team and networking and, client service, like you can do that in any type of business, right? So
yeah, and also answer. Like, if you're passionate about traveling, it doesn't mean you should own a travel agency. Like go find the right vehicle that's going to give you great passive income, great control of your time, and then go travel your ass off. Travel.
I love it.
You don't have to help other people with their travel headaches, because that can happen too, right? You get into a business because you're passionate about it, and then a year or two down the road, you hate it because now it feels like work.
Yes. Yeah. You don't want that. Well, let's finish up with the other challenges, because I know there were more. And I think that's really helpful for people because they always hear the benefits, but not necessarily the challenges to really consider. So with franchising, what other challenges are people going to run into that do they need to be aware of?
Yeah. So, I mean, one is just simply there are bad franchises out there. Like they're not all created equally. I'm a big believer in the franchising model, but you'll always hear me when I talk about it. I say things like franchising when it's done right, or, when the franchise system has been built correctly. So yeah, in order for it to make sense to write a check up front, to start the business, to pay a percentage of your revenue on an ongoing basis, there does need to be enough value coming to you as a franchisee. Not all franchises do a good job of that. So that's a challenge. That's part of where someone like myself can help. We spend a lot of time vetting different franchises, and I want to be able to sleep at night. Thankfully, I've got other income streams, so I don't need, the commission that comes from whether or not you buy a franchise to be able to put food on my family's table. And it's why I'm as selective as I am with the brands that I work with, because I want to have a lot of confidence in the brand. So there's ways to, pretty confidently avoid just getting into a dud of a franchise if you're smart about it, but that's a potential risk. And then, once you're in it, I kind of explain to people, it's kind of like a marriage, right? I mean, no franchisor is perfect. Every franchisor is going to have flaws in their system or, area where they can get better in terms of supporting their franchisees. And you will never meet a franchisee that is 100% happy or satisfied with what their franchisor is or is not doing for them, right? With both of the brands I own, I could talk to you for the next 2 hours on each of them about things I wish they were doing differently or better or whatever. Doesn't mean I'm not happy with them. So it's kind of like being married, right? Where, if you're out to dinner with some friends that you haven't seen a while and they're like, oh, how's things going with you and your wife? You're going to be like, it's great. I love her more than ever. Things are amazing. You're probably not going to go into detail about like the argument you had on the way here, the fact that her laundry is always laying around, or you tripped over her shoes in the kitchen again, or like whatever the little pet peeves and stuff are. So it's going to be kind of similar to that in a franchise, where there's always going to be a little bit of rub and like things that, just aren't maybe perfect, but it doesn't change the grand scheme of things. It's a good, healthy, productive relationship. Everyone's benefiting from it. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to be aware of the other franchisees, because as I mentioned earlier, there's always going to be top performers, underperformers, everything in between. The underperformers are usually looking to point fingers anywhere but at themselves. And sometimes, a little bit of that's justified, but in my experience, very rarely have I seen someone underperforming in a franchise business and the majority of it not be their fault. Just from not executing, not doing the work. So I've seen, we've fallen into this a little bit in our own businesses where, the negativity can kind of suck you in, and next thing you know, you're kind of, just with the other finger pointers and they're bringing you down. So I always tell people when I've been working with them and they're getting ready to, sign their franchise agreements and make it official, I'm like, look, going into this is kind of like going into the first day of middle school. Like, you need to figure out who are the cool kids, like who are the kids you want to be around, and who are the kids that you don't want to be around, and you got to kind of play it a little bit like that. So that's like probably one most people don't really think about until it's happening, but I see that commonly. So I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot of challenges. Some of them are going to be unique to the actual business or to the individual, but bottom line is, we're talking about business ownership. This isn't passive income. And if you want to get the results, you got to put in the work. And the benefit of a franchise is that it can give you a smarter, faster way to get the results if the franchise is built right and if the owner plugs in and does what they're supposed to do. So all of that really needs to come together.
And you need a trusted guide, Wes Barefoot, and I know just the guy in Wilmington, North Carolina. Everyone needs to talk to. So, man, this was great. This was just so much knowledge that you shared. I just love, I love your heart for education and just telling it like it is. So, Path to Freedom is your franchise consulting company. Where obviously people can find you on LinkedIn. They better be able to if I did my job. Wes Barefoot.
I hear I have quite the presence on LinkedIn these days.
Let's hope so. But online, where should they go to find you, the podcast, all that good stuff?
Website is just www.path, the number 2 FRDM.com. So kind of short form for freedom. I'll make sure you have a link to it if it's easier to just post the link. And then, yeah, the podcast is out there. YouTube, all the, podcast platforms. It's just Path to Freedom podcast. John's going to be a guest soon. And, look, I understand that not everyone out there is going to realize that a franchise is right for them. It's not right for them. I understand that business ownership's not right for everyone. I mean, with my podcast and ultimately the platform that I'm building, it's really meant to just be a resource to people that ultimately want more freedom in their lives. So business ownership, franchise ownership can be a great, component of that, but it's not, for most people going to be the end all be all of that. So the podcast, I interview a lot of awesome entrepreneurial guests. I interview people that are, more focused on passive investing like real estate and things that I'm not an expert in. So I think there's something for pretty much everyone, when it comes to the podcast. And I kind of use it selfishly just to talk to people that are cooler than me and smarter than me. And I keep learning from it myself. So it's a lot of fun. And John, want to just give you a quick shout out too, because I've worked with a handful of, marketing companies that kind of specialize in LinkedIn. And, you guys are taking the right approach, in my opinion. I mean, the amount of time that you and your team has spent getting to know me and understanding my story and then translating that to, everything that we're doing on LinkedIn. It's night and day difference between the kind of generic approach that the other companies I'd worked with in the past are doing. So, if anyone's out there listening and you know what John and his team do, but you haven't, really thought about using it for yourself, if prospecting is a component of your business, which I'm guessing it is, you should probably hop on the phone with John and, see what they could do for you. Cause it's been good for me. So appreciate all the, and also thanks to those on your team that are always waiting on me to approve things and get things back to them.
We ride you like a rented mule, Barefoot. Jen Wells is on you. I just saw your to-do list today. I'm like,
she is. I got a text from her yesterday. I spent all last night preparing for this, Jen. That's why I didn't get to those to-dos, but hopefully tonight.
Well, you're the best, man. I didn't know you were going to say the nice things about us.
He didn't ask me to say that, but it's legitimate. It's a good personalized approach. And I think the type of strategy that people respond to versus just, feeling like they're getting spammed to death, right, which is, the common tactic on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It has to be the real life you, has to come through LinkedIn. And that's what we strive to try to do. And I'm glad people got to hear your story today. I think there's so much value in your journey, the entrepreneurial lessons, the business owner lessons, the franchise consulting lessons, the franchise ownership lessons. There's a lot to unpack here. So really, really grateful, Wes Barefoot, for coming on. Thanks again for being a guest.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.